What I care a lot about is people who are in a kind of powerless position and people who feel not only powerless, but have moved into states of passivity and immobilization. It's often not the case that these people are stupid or ignorant, that there's something else that has put them into a state of passivity. We can get 5 million people to demonstrate against a war, and they're going to still do it. So why even bother? It doesn't matter that all of us are opposed to these Wall Street bailouts for the very rich here, and nobody cares about poor struggling homeowners. It doesn't matter. They're in control. We have no power. That kind of sense I see increasingly, which is, makes me think about a lot of people that I see on an individual level who have moved into what psychologists call a kind of learned helplessness or in a kind of abuse situation. And so, I'm interested in powerlessness, and I'm interested in, how people move into a state of passivity, but I'm mostly interested in how people move out of that, how people get out of that. And so I see lots of parallels in terms of individual depression and generalized political passivity. What is happening that is pacifying huge numbers of people? Are they completely broken? Or are they just somewhat demoralized? Or are they just completely apathetic? Or do they care, but they've got no energy or they've got no hope? One of the first things that I do in this book is to take a look at what are the different areas, and they're across the political spectrum. So folks who are normally on the left, liberals, they're very comfortable with the idea of talking about how consumerism has broken folks, how greed has broken, sort of what I call in the book like a kind of moneyism. They're comfortable even talking about how corporations and the media have propagandized people and have socially isolated people, and suburbs and car culture, and all of those things are hugely important. But there's other issues I think sometimes folks, for example, on the left there, are not so crazy to talk about, that are also breaking people, which are normally considered left institutions, but are really not functioning in any kind of, they're functioning more to break people than to create more satisfying human lives. Those institutions are schools. There's all these wonderful teachers in these places who really care about learning, but the institutions themselves are mostly all about getting young people to follow orders and be compliant. And that's really what school does best. It takes a population and gets it to comply and follow orders. Yes, some learning goes on there, but mostly the major piece of learning is compliance. And so the more that you foster a society to feel like there's something deeply problematic about itself if it doesn't, have at least a high school degree, a college degree, an MA, PhD, you've also now created like a hierarchy that makes a whole bunch of people who aren't at the very top. I guess at the top is what, I don't know, PhD, MD, I don't know how many degrees you have to be at the top of that hierarchy, or else you're inferior. You get to vote for a Republican, and what do? You get senseless wars and corporate control. Well, I'll vote for a Democrat. Guess what? You get senseless wars and corporate control. No, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to vote for a third party. I'm going to vote for whatever, maybe the Green Party or something else. Well, guess what? Republicans or Democrats are still going to win, and you get senseless wars and corporate control. Or, you know what? I'm not going to vote. Screw them. To hell with all of them. I'm going to stay at home, and I'm not going to vote. What do you get? Corporate control, and senseless wars. So, that is a learned helplessness thing for lots of folks out there. What is it going to take for a population out there who are feeling demoralized, broken, de-energized? What are the things that they're going to need? At one time, actually, there were historians in America who were looking at great democratic movements, who were analyzing them and trying to figure out what did these people have that these other people don't have? Is it just really an issue that a lot of people like to believe, well, if things get crappy enough and they get rotten enough, then certainly there'll be a revolution. Well, that's really not the case. When people have what the great populist historian Goodwin has called individual self-respect and collective confidence, that's when you see people take action. Well, what the heck can we do to restore that, or to get people their individual self-respect or their self-respect? How can we get that back? How can we get back this thing that he calls collective self-confidence, which is just the belief that people feel that they can actually win, that they can actually take back some control over their life? What are those things that can create that? And so that's what I care about, just like I care about on an individual level. There's some things that are parallel for a group, for a population, but some things that are a little bit different. So some of the things that parallel for an individual is just this whole area of how does a group get their morale back? How does a group get energy? How do people within that group heal and feel whole? Some of those things parallel that. But other things, there are other areas too that have to do with how do people unify? How do people learn how to form those kinds of relationships again where they're not taking seriously minor differences and focusing on what they have that are hugely important in common. What can people do who are not completely passive and helpless and demoralize themselves to help folks get that morale back, get that energy, also to help them unify themselves to gain greater strength? That's what I care about, and bringing that out of the individual personal realm to the larger group, as I see American society becoming more of a lot of it becoming a society that's moved into the psychology of the oppressed, or this fatalism, or what Bob Marley called mental slavery. There's lots of different terms for that, and that's where we're moving. And I really am concerned. I really care about us beginning this discussion here and coming up with solutions for this problem.